Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County flying over Houston, and in this video we're going to focus a little bit more on some of our connections to our airports as well as some of our passenger travel around the map. And so here we are at the airport, and our biggest problem was this bus station is currently sort of being used as a transfer station between Houston and Salt Lake City. If we take a look at our destinations layer, that sort of confirms it. We do have a lot of people starting to come in. It looks like we currently don't have anyone looking to go out to Roswell, but taking a look at some of this information here, it's very clear that we should probably separate these bus lines so that they're not connected to each other, but they're both connected to the airport. Now I think we will also set up a bus line between Salt Lake City and Houston, but that will primarily take our highway connection here, so that'll just be a little bit of a different route. We'll still allow private transport to take this road, but we're going to rework some things around here to maybe de-incentivize people driving this way, and then also keeping these bus lines separate. And then another slightly unintended consequence of all this is this intersection is starting to become a little bit busy as it's starting to bear the brunt of a lot of vehicles coming from Salt Lake City as well as some of our cargo traffic. So it's not really getting held up at the moment, but I think it is getting to the point where it's getting very close to its capacity in terms of how many vehicles can come through here. So we might also create a few more road connections in the area just to make it a little bit easier for our vehicles to get through the area. And so I think we are going to pause for this because we will be breaking some routes. I don't want to interrupt the people that we already have intending on going to the airport interrupted. So we're going to pause for this, and we can see it is possible to have these two bus lines separated but still connected to the airport. As you can see, if we just place a bus stop on this end, the airport highlights but the bus stop does not. If we move it a little bit closer, you can see that segment of the road where the bus stop is does highlight, and that's what we don't want. But I think we're going to rework some of the roads in here anyway, because I think the road connecting to the airport should be more of a strictly access road, and maybe our main road sort of bypasses it and goes around. So we'll figure out something here, but we'll be back once we have all of that figured out. Alright, so this is our new layout here by the airport. We really expanded it, so I think this is really going to be sort of the fully built out final design of this airport, with two main entrances, pretty much one for each city. So the Houston side enters from here, the Salt Lake City side enters from here, and then we have our access roads on here, a little bit windy and unconnected, so that hopefully private transport won't be cutting in through here and taking this road instead. We can sort of confirm that if we look at our destinations layer, and we can see everyone's preferring to take this road over this one here, besides our buses, which is exactly what we want to see from it. Now there's a few things I think I'd like to change. I think I'd like to see our bus line still use this road, as it seems to have auto defaulted to this road. So we're going to add a waypoint, which we can just throw down like so. We'll probably have to do one in the opposite direction as well. And then we'll just have to find this bus, manage the line, and then this is stop 6. So after stop 5, we want it to come here. And then after the airport, it comes back through this waypoint. So hopefully I'll clear up our streets a little bit. I'm not fully confident on that yet, but at least this intersection won't be taking the full brunt of all the traffic. Unfortunately, I think it might end up being this intersection, but we'll have to, again, wait and see what happens here. And in fact, I think we do want our oil trucks using this road, because we didn't want a crossing here. So I think let's maybe see. I'm not sure if we'll be able to build a bridge here. Let's see if we can get a bridge built across this way. If we can't, that would be perfectly fine. We'll just have to reroute the trucks. But I think the goal would be to get a bridge at this portion as well, as that's what would probably make the most sense in an area like this. Alright, so we tried a few options here, and nothing we really tried worked. If we tried a bridge, it was really too tall and didn't look right, especially as we tried to transition it down to this height, or even tried to connect it to this road. So I think we're just going to leave it as is. I know this pretty much just brings us back to square one, because we are going to have to reroute these lines to take this connection. So let's figure out where this was going. So it comes from here. We'll bring it through this waypoint, and then the return trip after that waypoint will come through the other waypoint. And so really it's just back to normal with these lines. One thing I think we could potentially do is create a connection directly to this road, and that might help with some of our stone trucks, as we can get them to come directly on this street instead of coming through here. That'll help a little bit with some of our traffic. Now, we do have to think about what we want to do with this connection. I think it'll just be I want to say it'll be a tunnel under here. So let's maybe try to get something reasonable. Alright, so we've gone through and added a road connection here. Now, surprisingly, this route still wanted to take this road. We even tried extending this road farther down this way, just to more naturally dissuade the route from taking that way, but apparently it still thought that going this way was faster than taking this road. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. They look to be about a similar distance, especially because this line has to come up, over, and then back to this road instead of turning and then just turning again onto the road that would take you straight to the construction materials. But we used a waypoint. Our line rate did drastically change, but I don't fully believe that, again, based on the fact that I don't think this was that much of a change in distance. So we'll have to wait for this to recalculate before we begin making any more changes. I believe it was up around 1160 or 1180, but now this says it's down to 760, which again still feels like too large of a jump for such a minor change as that. So we'll wait for things to readjust and check back in on this stone line later. However, I think that's going to be it for these connections. We'll continue to monitor this intersection. It's going to take a while for the trucks that are currently headed through here to get through here, but I think our access to the airport is much better. We can take a look at our destinations layer, and we can see this even helped bring this number down a bit, the private transportation. That's down into the 20s, which I'm pretty comfortable there. That's not taking away too much from our highway, which is up in the 60s or even 40s and 50s heading out towards Houston. So I don't think it's that unreasonable that this road would get used, especially again since a lot of this part of Houston is inaccessible to direct connections to the highway. So I don't think we would ever be able to entirely cut off this connection, and given that we're also sort of playing off of somewhat realistic, it wouldn't make sense to intentionally sever this connection just so we could keep these bus lines separated. And so we can see our airport getting some use. Our bus line looks like we do have some people coming to directly get to Houston. No one in Salt Lake City yet, but I think that's just a matter of time before people start using that. And so I think that's all for this area. Now I do want to set up a bus line between Salt Lake City and Houston. And so we already have a bus stop here, which I think would function pretty well as a regional bus stop. It does have a pretty low capacity, so maybe there's something we can change there. And so I actually think this is going to be our solution. We'll just have another bus stop pretty much right next to it. Now, it looks like we might have to change a few things because this road just doesn't connect right. We might have to replace this and lower it down just a tiny bit so that's more level with the road. So something like that should work. Again, we'll come back to our streets. And then this should be a little bit better. We can still see there's a weird little jump there. Oh, I wish there was a better way we could place this. So let's maybe try that. And then this road can get placed, and we don't have to worry too much about elevation changes. This looks a bit more natural. And then we can do some tiny bits of detailing just to fix these areas up, make them look like they belong. So maybe we get a line of trees between these two stations, something like that, and then maybe the trees come along here as well. Yeah, it doesn't look awful, and then this station can just exist as it is for now. And actually, I think maybe we could put some hedges here right along the road. There we go, and this looks a little bit nicer, a bit more cohesive. So these will be separate bus stops. They are connected to each other, technically, so that actually won't be too terrible when it comes to all of our other connections. But now we can go over to Houston. And we'll need to do something similar here. We'll need to have a bus station somewhere. And I think maybe this corner would seem to fit the best. So I think we'll pretty much just use the same station, place it right here along this road. And so with this stop, I don't think we have to really do too much detailing. We are going to turn this area into something eventually, so that is something that will come, but I don't think we're going to have to do anything directly with that bus stop. So we'll just flatten out some of this terrain, make this look nice, and then we can set up the bus line between Houston and Salt Lake City. I think we'll grab our buses from our Houston road depot, and because we are going to be going highway speeds, we'll want the fastest buses that we have, which is one of these two. And I think it's gonna be this one, just because the well, actually they have the same running cost. So we'll go with the one with more power, and we'll start off with 10 buses. Those will then go from this station into our Salt Lake City station here. And the routing looks correct. We'll want to make sure it's taking the correct routes here, which this looks all good and fine. So I think we're good with this bus line. And now we can pretty much just let that run, and we'll check back in later to see what kind of demand we're able to pull from that. And now I want to take a look at our trains yet again, because all of our stations are pretty much full at this point. If we even check in on Portland, I think Portland is also very full. So I think it's time we take a look at this train line. And again, let's first see if there's a better train combination that we can come up with. And then if not, we'll probably just add another train or two to help with this. Alright, and so here's the train that we're going to test out. It is two of these EMD E8 engines with 10 passenger cars behind it, and those passenger cars are the All-American Golden Sand cars. So we have a slightly increased top speed compared to our older trains. We will have a much higher running cost. I believe this new train will be around $8 million a year, and hopefully that running cost gets offset by the greatly increased capacity. These new trains will have 190 capacity compared to the 119 of the old train. This is a bit of a gamble and quite expensive, so hopefully this pays off. We will have to keep a close eye on this, but we're going to replace all those engines. We'll also need to keep an eye on and make sure that these trains aren't too long for a lot of our stations, since I believe this train is significantly longer than the trains we've been running before. So let's look here in Portland, and this already looks like it's not going to fit. So I think we're going to have to move this switch farther out. I would like to extend the station, but I don't want to cut off this road connection at all. So for now, we'll just be moving the crossover farther back. And so here, that should work. And we really should increase the size of these platforms so we don't get the loading speed penalty. I think we could do that right now really quick. And then we'll come in, configure this station. Alright, and so we have our extended station now. This should be enough to fit this train. We won't know until the next train comes in, but it looks like it's just fine. We're not getting the loading penalty anymore. So let's move on to our next station, which would be our Salt Lake City station. And this looks like it's also too short for these trains, so extending this shouldn't be too hard. I think what we'll have to do is extend it out this way, since we do start to curve here. So I think let's pause right now We are going to have to, again, move this switch a bit farther back, but I'm okay with that. Alright, and that's now our Salt Lake City station extended. It looks like this is just long enough to fit our trains. And then the last station we should look at is Houston, and I think this one also definitely needs extended. So we'll also do that one as well. Alright, and so that should be all of our stations now upgraded for these new trains. We are going to have to wait a little bit before we see the financial impacts of this. Previously, it looks like we were making about 15 million in profit. So if the new trains make the same or more, we'll consider that a win. What I am worried about now is we may have overshot how much demand there is on this line. So we might have to end up deleting a train or two, as it looks like we can now move 1,000 people as our rate. So that might be a bit much for Portland or Salt Lake City, but we'll just have to keep an eye on it. If we have to delete a train, I'm perfectly fine with that, especially since we're running 9 of them. But I think we can take a look around here and see if our trains are reaching their top speeds, which it looks like they get pretty close to. This train's up over 100 miles an hour. Unfortunately, these stations are somewhat close to each other, so I think it's a little unrealistic to expect them to always hit their top speeds. I think especially since I don't remember if this curve still limits their speed or not. But taking a look around, as long as our trains are getting pretty up there in terms of top speed, I'm not too worried about it. This train is approaching 100 as it comes into Portland, so again, I'm pretty okay with that. And so I think we can move on from this area and start to think about some of the other connections we can make across the map. Alright, so we're back over here in Tacoma, where I think we're going to continue to push forward with our highway project. Now this is something I really haven't been looking forward to too much, but we do need to figure out how we're going to cross this river, and I think it is going to be fairly unrealistic, just given the height and the distance that we'll be going across here. But maybe it won't be. I'm not too sure. This just feels like a very wide river to cross with such a tall bridge. If we come and we grab our highway here, I imagine we'll be tunneling under this hill here, and then when we come out, we'll be somewhere around this point, where then we're going to bridge across to, I believe it was this location, yeah, because we want to come through this little opening in the mountains here. And so really we'll be coming across right here, and this will probably be a suspension bridge just because of how large it is. But I mean, looking at this, this feels a little unrealistic. This feels very tall, so we can do a little bit to bring this down a bit, but we can see here it's also a mile long. Now, I don't know too much about bridges, so I don't know if a 1 mile long suspension bridge is actually that long or not, or if maybe it's just the game's scaling makes 1 mile look a lot farther than it actually is. But I think we're going to try to do our best. We'll shorten this as much as possible and bring it down as much as possible, but realistically, this is going to be quite a large bridge, and probably the largest bridge we have on the map. But we'll get that in, and then once that's in, I think we can have a highway connection to Lincoln at that point. Alright, and now we have our bridge placed and a highway connection to Lincoln over here. So this bridge came out pretty alright. I don't think it's too egregious, and I think it actually looks pretty decent from a distance, especially with the trains coming under. There's more than enough clearance for that. So I actually don't think this came out too bad in the end. I just don't like how many pillars there are on this suspension bridge, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. We have a tunnel here under this little hill, and then that connects us directly back into Tacoma. Alright, and then one last connection I want to make is between Lincoln and this airport, which will then subsequently connect it to Roswell. And I think how we want to do this connection is right here, since this is already a stoplight. I think if we just come directly off of here, and then we just sort of have this country road follow this way, we'll avoid all the train tracks, and then we can connect up here. I feel like this road is going to get used a lot more than we're sort of initially intending it to, but that's something we will ultimately take care of whenever we determine that. I'm not sure if I really want this to end up being a 4-lane country road, or because we definitely don't want to reroute our road that goes to the cargo hub, but we also don't want to not have this road be adequate enough for average use. But anyway, we'll just extend this road straight out even more. And then at this point, I think we can just drag these to connect them. Get rid of that contours layer. And I don't think this came out too bad, so we'll smooth out some of the terrain just to make it fit in a little bit better. And then I think we're going to set up a bus line from Lincoln directly to the airport, and we'll avoid the same mistake we made over in Houston. So we'll set this bus stop far enough away to where it's connected to the airport, but it's not connected to the other bus stop here. And it is going to be a bit weird for probably a little bit until we get through and rebuild this area a bit, but I think for now that'll be fine. Now I don't anticipate too many people going from Lincoln to the airport, but we will still put a bus station sort of out on the end of the city over this way. And actually, I think if we could squeeze this in right at this intersection, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I think we can come back through and detail it to make it fit in a little bit better farther in the future once it's a bit more set in stone. But now we can grab wherever our road depot is, grab our buses. This one will only do probably 8 buses, since I don't anticipate too many people wanting to do this. And then that will go straight from there to this bus stop. And so we should be good with that line now. Alright, so I think that's all that we're going to do in this video. I know it wasn't a lot, but we ran into quite a few troubles that took a good bit of time to resolve, especially with the road connections. But I think now we're going to take a closer look at what we've done in this video, and then when we come back, we'll recap the changes we made, make sure they're working as intended, and then talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so here we are as we come by our airport on our new passenger train. You can see Houston out in the distance. Let's take a closer look at this line. And we're seeing some not so promising numbers here. Although, hopefully that's just... yeah. It looks like this was definitely a much needed improvement on the line. We can see here, it looks like this is running at almost a $30 million profit. Here this says 25 million. That's probably a little bit closer to what it is. We should probably take a look at our stations and make sure we are getting people out of these stations and that we're not completely running them empty. As it looks like here in Salt Lake City, we might have to start worrying about that with some of our trains going to Portland. We'll see how full this train ends up getting. But I'm going to start to worry that maybe in the next video or two, we're going to see some passenger numbers on this line start to go down a little bit as we catch up to the overall demand. And so this train's going to load up, and we'll see if it hits full capacity at 190 people. And it does not. So we only get 150 people on this train. Let's take a look at Portland. Portland is now completely empty, and this train's picking up 132 people. Now, there's some ways we'll be able to fix this. Some of it, again, we might just have to get rid of a train or two because our numbers in Houston are also still adjusting because that was our most in-demand city. But other things we could do is get more buses coming to these train stations. Because right now we have 3 buses coming to this Portland bus stop. And really I think that there's a lot more that we could do in terms of bringing people into the station. We saw that this train can handle a rate of 1,000, and clicking through these 3 lines, I think this only adds up to about 600 or 700 at best. So, of course, that would make sense that our trains leaving Portland would be a little bit empty, considering we don't even have the capacity to bring in enough people to fill the trains. Now, over here in Salt Lake City, I think we're going to get to a similar situation. However, it just seems that more people want to go to Houston than Portland. We could fix that by bringing in more people, although I think we are moving a lot of people with our current bus network. We do have to continue sorting out our traffic issues in Salt Lake City, as some of our truck lines are still getting held up by either our buses or some other lines. So that's something that we'll definitely need to take a look at and fix here soon. But I think Salt Lake City's okay. I think it's just somehow we need to get more demand going to Portland. And then again, Houston, as we saw, it is a little bit lower, which leads me to believe we might actually need to get rid of a train or two, just because we won't have that demand for too long. But I think overall, we can consider this new line a fairly large success. We can see 2 financial periods in a row. We're pretty much going to be making around $30 million just from that line. And then while we're in Houston, let's take a look at our planes. And it looks like our planes are starting to leave more than half full most of the time. And if we're seeing this right, it looks like we might actually finally start making money from air travel. So I think demand is still slowly increasing, as our latest plane has left with 10 people. This bus just dropped off some people. I'm not sure how many. It looks like it might just be 1 or 2. Yeah, it looks like it was 2 people. But maybe some of these other buses we'll start to see. This bus has another 2 people. I think this is exciting. I think we will start to see more and more people coming in through here. And I think once we get more connections, once we get more bus line connections, because I know we wanted to get, I think it was this line in and connected to the airport. I think once we do that, we'll start to really see some numbers come into this airport. And really the only other thing that I think we need to recap is this highway connection, which looks like it is getting a decent amount of use. Thankfully, it looks like it's not completely taking over our train line, so that is great to see. But the fact that it is getting some use is exactly what we want. This is really just to provide some slight relief to our transit network. If it's overloading or anything, people still have the option to get to their destinations without taking public transportation. And it looks like Lincoln really wants to grow, so let's close that off before that becomes a problem. Which I think brings us into our next steps and future projects, which I think one of our more, not necessarily immediate needs, but something that I think we're going to have to come back to is expanding some of our cities again. I know Lincoln is very desperate to grow, as the target population is well over its current population. It looks like this area filled out quite nicely. I think we might delete this road just because these elevation changes look pretty bad. So we might just delete this road and then put in some trees on this hill as sort of a transition. We can clean up this hillside now that it's filled in with buildings. And then I think with Lincoln, it would really just be filling in back this way. I don't think Lincoln is a city that wants to grow across the river into this area. I don't know, maybe. Let me know what you guys think, if we should build some bridges across and have the city build a little bit into this split between the rivers. But other than that, moving on, I don't think we're going to see many people using this bus line just yet, although it looks like there's one person. So that's one person that wants to go to the airport. But this bus line is still pretty new. This is all the buses you can see going to this stop, so they're not even spread out really. Now to check on my biggest worry, which is this road and how much use it's getting. It doesn't seem like it's that bad. It looks like 5 in one direction, maybe 10-ish in the other. And that's not awful. Now, those numbers could still be rising, but I think we'll leave that and we'll continue to keep an eye on people going back and forth there. As it looks like our Roswell Airport is almost ready to have a full plane leave for the first time ever, I think. We just need to get 2 more people in here, and then we'll be able to have a plane depart completely full. Some other steps I want to continue moving forward with is this hub here, maybe getting some more resources to it or creating some more connections, since I think now we can start to really get some more resources coming into Lincoln, maybe even out to Tacoma, especially once this highway gets built. We might even be able to get a few trucks easily into the city without having to take it all by train on this line. So that's an option. But I think I do want to get this a bit more involved in the region. Now, as our highways do begin closing in on this area, I think that will really help this out in the future, because we'll be able to get some road connections to Pittsburgh. We'll be able to get some road connections out to Tacoma, and we already have a boat connection to Roswell, but maybe even a road connection to Roswell would be pretty beneficial, which we do technically now have, but it's pretty out of the way. And then again, as we talked a little bit before, specifically the Houston line that we upgraded, upgrading the bus networks, or at least attempting to fix them in the cities along that line, so we are getting enough people in and out of the stations as much as possible. I think that will be hugely beneficial for that line. And then we can start to apply those things to the other cities across the map. But I think just with how big this map is, we really do have an infinite list of things that we could do. It's just about picking and choosing what we want to prioritize most first. And so I think those are the things that we're going to mainly focus on. And I think that leaves us with a good stopping point. Alright, and so with that, I think that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.